Welcome everybody to this conversation today. I'm Paul Mallory. I'm having a conversation with Greg McColl. You can see him there. Welcome, Greg.
Morning.
And we're going to have a conversation today for the members of the Thrive Tribe group. We're going to talk about, try and give you some insights for greater success. We'll talk a little bit about peace of mind as well. It's the question we've been asked most, actually, on the Thrive Tribe members website, how to achieve greater peace of mind. So we'll talk a bit about that. But Greg is a very experienced coach. He's got some great ideas, I know, because I've talked to him already, and we're going to share some of those with you today, so I hope you really enjoy it. Thank you so much, Greg, for sparing the time.
No problem at all.
So, Greg, I'm going to start with, you can say a little bit about what you do, if you like, but what I'm really intrigued by, on your website, it says you're a mind coach. What's a mind coach?
What's a mind coach? It's an umbrella term, really. It covers every aspect from performance, focus, motivation, whether it's anxiety, stress, productivity, anything to do with people's mind, their mindset, their approach, beliefs, values, just how to move forwards in whatever area it is that they want to move forwards in, really. And the best way for them to do it.
Do you view the mind as a component of a system? Because obviously we think a lot about our physical health and nutrition. I do at the moment because I'm on a plan. So we think a lot about our nutrition, our exercise and stuff like that. Do you see the mind as a component of resources that we have? How do you think of that?
Yeah, the whole mind-body connection is a very, very big part of what I do with people, because the whole notion is such an incredible thing to think that even something as simple as blushing is a physical response to a mental thought.
Okay.
It's so simple, but it shows you that we have to be careful what we think, because everything that we think will affect our physiology, and then our physiology feeds back to our brain, and that makes us feel a certain way, and then that influences our behavior. So the whole system is very, very, people carry tension up here. That's mental tension, So the biofeedback system of the mind and the body is huge for everybody.
Yeah, it's a massive component, obviously, as a personal opinion. It's just such a massive part of what we do. And a lot of the thought process behind the Thrive Tribe is about getting our mental state into a better place so we feel more empowered and we can achieve more and so on. Because my observation would be, from the people I've worked with over the years, that's often the thing. Attitude, if you like, is the thing that drags us down. When we have skill and we have fitness and we have all these other things, it's just the way we're viewing it. So I think it's a massive component. So we're going to explore that a bit more in the next half an hour or so, if that's okay. And but maybe we could, you mentioned the word mindset, maybe we could just come on to a discussion of what mindset means, because you use that term a lot. It's one of those words, isn't it? Yeah. And maybe we all have slightly different interpretations of what we mean. And then maybe coming on a little bit to what mindfulness is as well. So mindset and mindfulness, what do those things mean to you?
I think mindset, if you wanted to switch it out for a simpler word, would be approach.
Okay.
How somebody approaches things. So their frame that they put around things, whether it's a positive frame, whether it's a negative frame, whether it's towards motivation or an away from motivation. The mindset is how people approach things. I think that's probably at its simplest, and then within that you have each component, how they approach it from a physical point of view, how they approach it from a mental point of view, where the focus is. We spoke briefly previously about people knowing what they want.
Yes.
And that's such an integral part of mindset, because you don't get clarity if you don't know what you want.
Yes. Kind of almost, to me, it almost feels like the mental environment, the mental context for everything. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, which then influences what we then do.
Yes, absolutely.
Consciously and unconsciously.
Yes, absolutely. And what about mindfulness? People talk a lot about mindfulness. It's an industry, isn't it?
It is. I love the old expression. If you can see the bandwagon, you've already missed it. And with mindfulness, I deal a lot with people with stress and anxiety as well. And for a lot of those people, mindfulness is perhaps not really the first station they should be stopping at on their journey of improvement. You know, that sitting in a quiet room with your own thoughts is generally not a good thing, and they find it very, very hard when somebody has a very busy mind, which accounts for sort of the high number of people I see that say, oh yeah, I've tried meditation, I've tried mindfulness, I can't do it.
Yep.
And you just have to start somewhere else first. You just have to slow things down first.
Yes.
And if you can do that, there's lots of ways to do that by using physiology again to slow things down. Just turn down the wick and bring your running speed. Usually when people are in that sort of anxious way, or that they're overrunning or they're in overwhelm, they're operating at a very fast speed. Mentally, they're usually quite agitated. Also, just slowing everything down.
That's a really interesting concept, and also the link to physiology, as you say, because classically the classic meditation begins with breathing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Taking more
and now science is just confirming what the yogis have known for thousands of years. But by using breathing, and there's so many different ways of using your breathing to stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system and switch on that relaxation response.
Yes.
By doing that, you're telling your brain a different story, and your brain says, oh, he's physically relaxed, even though you might be mentally uptight. So your brain then changes its brain chemistry and starts to produce those acetylcholine and the serotonins and the dopamines. So your body relaxes a wee bit more, and your brain says, oh, my body's relaxed a wee bit more. He must be feeling good. I'll produce more of that. And that whole cycle that we spoke about earlier of the mind and the body comes into its own. Everything slows down, and then it's far easier to become more mindful or approach meditation or whatever your goal is there.
Equally, it reinforces that importance of looking after your body as well, doesn't it? Because how do you think clearly, and how do you become mindful and peaceful if you're physically in bad shape? So it's
absolutely.
Diet and habit and all that comes into play, doesn't it? It's all interlinked. That's really interesting. So the other aspect of this that really fascinates me, and I blog about it quite often, is the role that the beliefs play in what we do. The extent to which I have a bit of a theory that almost everything we see is actually our belief. I'm not sure what's objectively true at all, because we're creating our own experience inside our heads from the external stimulus. So the external stimulus is probably the same for everyone, but we're creating our own experience internally. So almost everything we know to be true is our belief of it, and I find that a really empowering idea, because then we can do something about it. Do you have the same sort of philosophy?
Yeah, again, in that aspect of things, everything is covered by our own beliefs, our own experiences, our own baggage, what we hold to be true, what we hold to not be true. There's a great study done just even looking at language, where they showed people a video of a car accident, and then depending on whether they asked the person how fast were the cars moving when they collided, or how fast they moved, how fast the cars were moving when they hit each other, or how fast the cars were moving when they crashed, people's perception of how fast the cars were moving changed depending on the language that was used. Really? So we're open to influence and our beliefs about what is true. So the cars were traveling much faster is what I believe, but that's been influenced by the language that's been used. Yes. And so our beliefs are integral. The old Henry Ford quotes, spot on. Whether you believe you can or can't, you're right, because that is then what moves us on to us either taking action, what actions we do take, whether we don't take action, and our mindset as well. So beliefs are a huge part of everybody's motivation.
So one thing people can usefully do, just a practical tip, I think, it seems to me a very valuable thing, is to try to examine their own beliefs, to ask them when they're making a decision or taking an action, what beliefs did I base that on? Because it's a really interesting exercise in self-awareness, I think, to try and uncover those, and then to wonder how empowering or limiting those beliefs might be, because it could be either.
Oh, absolutely. Always ask yourself, is that true?
Yes.
Is that true? And it's funny that recently, when you start to look at what neuroscience is doing with what they call memory reconsolidation and stuff like this, so that every time we remember something, it's not the original thing we're remembering, it's a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, because every time we store it again in our brains, it's influenced by the mental state we're in at the time. It's influenced by the chemicals that are in our body at the time, and that's why you get state-dependent memory and stuff. So our memories, we can't really trust them either.
Yeah.
You know, and I find myself wondering, did that actually happen? You know, childhood memories, thinking, did that actually happen? Yes. I don't know, because everything's coloured by my belief. Did it happen? How did it happen? Is it true? Yeah. If somebody else were there, would they have experienced or seen the same thing?
So true.
It's such a massive question.
And the other theory around that I really like, that really resonates with me as seemingly true, linked to that, linked to beliefs and so on, is, and indeed faith. You know, we could talk about faith as well, and what's the difference between faith, conviction, belief, but they're all influencing our behaviours and our decisions and how we view the world. And I had this theory as well that we're creating narrative about our lives, very closely linked to memory, actually. I was having a debate just yesterday about who would we be without our memories. It's a really interesting thought. You know, if you actually were a blank page and you couldn't remember anything, who are you now? Right? Not just do you remember who you are, but actually who are you? But that
you'd write your own story, wouldn't you?
Well, you'd start again probably, wouldn't you, and say what kind of story would I like to have? And I think there's some power in it again, Greg. You know, that if we're creating our own story, and I suspect we are. Yeah. Of how our life has been so far and what people did to us and how that affects us. We're writing this story about our lives and accepting it as truth, obviously. You don't recognise we're writing a story. But as soon as you spot that that's what's happening, that's really empowering, because now you can say, well, what do I want my story to be from here? You know, and create some new stuff.
Yeah, that issue of awareness and self-awareness, and the whole notion of I am not my thoughts.
Yes.
Is the minute that you can, I've got a sort of model that I use with people, the minute you can step outside your bubble and actually see the bubble for what it is, so if it's related to a motivation or a problem, particularly if people are experiencing difficulties, everything's very present to them, everything's very close. Yes. And if they can step outside of that bubble and actually see, so there I am in my problem. Now that I can see that from the outside, what can I do about it?
Yes. Is this why awareness? We find it much easier to give advice to friends than we do to ourselves. Is that the reason?
Well, it's absolutely. It's the objective position. You know, you remove the emotion from stuff. And again, you know, we'll talk about it later. But in motorsport, that's one of the things. You take the emotion out of it. Emotion's not helpful when it comes to stuff like that.
Well, let's come on to it. I wanted to ask you about the motorsport. It's one of the fascinating things on your website that I noticed is you're coaching racing drivers, is that right?
Yeah, riders, drivers, golfers, even darts players, which is very interesting as well. But in the motorsport, generally people, it's interesting actually, whether it's motorsport or whether it's real life, people tend to face the same obstacles, the same challenges. When you talk about motorsport, you have the performance anxiety, the self-doubts. Do I deserve to be here? Am I good enough? And then when the wheels come off, to pardon the pun, people's resilience and how they deal with that. How do they actually stand back up, dust themselves off, learn from it, rather than just going round in a circle emotionally? But how do I take that just as information? You know, the whole there is no thing as failure, it's only feedback model. How do I learn from this and learn that, okay, I won't do that again?
Yes.
that wasn't successful for me.
But so taking the emotion out seems to be key to some of this.
Yeah.
And that's one of the harder things to do.
Well, yeah, absolutely. The it's probably the hardest thing to do, And in motorsport, certainly when things don't go right for people, there's a real instant emotional kick the cat kind of frustration that comes from it. And again, that's applicable to most people's lives as well. And Derren Brown, I think, in his recent book Happiness, was revisiting that whole sort of Marcus Aurelius meditations and that sort of objectiveness, if we can rise above the emotion. Yeah, it's easier said than done a lot of the time. But being able to, again, step outside that bubble and even doing it as practical exercises with people. When I'm doing coaching, I had somebody here the other day, and we actually, we were doing it in the room. We were standing in different positions, taking different points of view, trying to understand what are the different points of view, what's an objective outsider's point of view, what would his unconscious's point of view be, what's his conscious point of view, and just exploring how do we get outside that bubble, how do we get that awareness and remove the emotion from it.
That's a really nice practical idea. I really like that. So one thing that people on this call could do, if they find themselves in a very emotional state and they're not sure what to do next, they can actually physically move position, say I'm going to go and stand in the unemotional corner and look back at this. It's just having those triggers, isn't it?
It's a wonderful thing. This chat the other day, we were doing this, and in that exercise as well, you start to then anchor the different emotions. So if you take it from a positive position, you can generate a positive state, but then you're anchoring that. And the other day when I was doing it with this chat, every time we went back to that spot, he started smiling. After we visited that spot 2 or 3 times, we were then anchoring the positivity to certain words to that spot in that state, which is lovely. But if people want to do it for themselves, what I'd suggest is get 3 sheets of A4, and on you write 1, 2, and 3. Move some furniture out of the way, and you start at position 1, which is how you currently think you're feeling, or what your current state is. Okay. Then position 2 would be an objective outsider. So if you were coaching yourself, or if it was a friend, what would a friend say to you? We can see it from the outside. What advice would they give? And position 3 might be, I don't know, it can even be somebody else. If you're just wanting to see their point of view, put yourself in their shoes, but actually physically stand up, walk, move. It changes your physiology, which changes your mindset. The actual physical moving around the room is a big part of it. But in position 3, it could be the problem that you're experiencing. It could be a negative aspect emotionally or whatever it is, but moving between physically each spot. And one of the important things when you do that is between each spot, move back into the middle and just take a breath, shake it off, reset, and then go back into one of your other positions again. But it's a really useful tool sometimes at just getting outside that bubble.
Yeah, and just interrupting the sort of habitual thought patterns that we're going through and so on, because we all do, don't we, from time to time get caught in the loop and we're not sure what to do with it. I love the idea of just stepping out of it. I mean, literally stepping out of it is great.
Moving, physically moving from one position to another, as you said there, it just breaks the cycle. You step outside yourself, different points of view, different perceptions. And a lot of self-generative change comes from it. When you start to appreciate, particularly if you use the exercise, even in conflict, where number 3 is somebody else, that appreciation of somebody else's position and the fact that what they're doing has a positive benefit for them. So while you may perceive it as negative, it's doing a positive thing for that person. And then you can get into helping that person meet their unfulfilled needs and helping their unmet needs be met, which makes your life better. And
excellent. So it sounds really
exciting.
Yeah,
it is. It is.
All of this stuff is for me. I mean, it's why I started the Thrive Track. You know, it's just to try to share some of these ideas with people that just help them perform better. In, you know, whatever performing better means to them. That's the point.
Yeah.
You know, it's like any judgment. And I was going to come on to ask you, particularly maybe in relation to racing drivers and so on, you know, what success is and what motivates people. You know, my Thrive Tribe theory is it's whatever works for you. It's what you want your life to be. But how does that work, for example, in the context of motor racing? Is it as simple as wanting to win every race, and what's motivating those people?
I think, again, they're not that different from normal people, in that motivation is a very important thing there. Whether, you know, you said, you know, they want to win every race. There is that, and usually at the start of a motor racing season, that's the focus. You know, most people at the start of a motor racing season, they're full of confidence. It's a new season, it's a new team. I've got, you know, a new car, a new bike, whatever it is. They're full, and yeah, I'm going to win this and I'm going to win that. Once things start to happen, and again, one of the big things that I work on with people when it comes to goal setting and outcomes is that you cannot dictate the outcome goal, because there are things that you cannot control. The only thing that you can take care of is your own stuff, your own processes, your own performance, because there are things that you cannot influence or control.
Yes.
But whether they're successful or not comes down to whether they're focused on what they want or whether they're focused on what they don't want. Yes. So I don't want to crash. I don't want to have a season like I had last year. I don't want to, you know, be beaten by so and so.
Yes.
That's possibly not the right motivation to have. The better motivation to have would be to say what you do want. Coming back to what we were saying earlier about knowing what you want.
You've absolutely hit on one of my bugbears here. You know, of having, you know, being the manager of people over the years in industry, for example. Exactly that. You know, annual performance appraisal, people will give you a list of the things they don't like about the job and what they don't want to do. And I've very regularly said, you can do anything you want to. What do you want to do? And they've said, what's available? And I said, no, wrong question. It's not what's available. It's what do you want. And people find it very difficult to answer that question. So there's a piece of work, right? I mean, that's what we've got to work on.
Yeah, and that motivation of it's why diets don't work. You know, if somebody's unhappy with their weight, their appearance, whatever, they're starting from a place of pain, and so their motivation usually is not to end up with an image in their mind to work towards. Their immediate pain is the thing that's, or discomfort is the thing that's most real to them at that moment. So their desire is to get away from that. So they focus on that. But of course, the further they get away from it, so they lose a couple of pounds, they lose a few more pounds, they join a slimming club, they make some new friends. It's great. The further they get away from it, their motivation to get away from it diminishes too, because they're further away from the pain.
Yes.
So the further they get away from the pain, the motivation starts to drop off. Yeah. So the motivation drops off, some old habits creep back in, put a pound on, put a couple of pounds on, and they start to backslide back towards the problem until they get to the point where it's painful again and uncomfortable for them, and so they start to take action again.
Yes.
And this is why it yo-yos for people, because the motivation is trying to get away from what they don't want, rather than saying, right, here's what I want.
Yes.
I want to be this weight. I want to be this fit. I want to be this because of this. It's going to be great. I've got an image in my mind. I know how I'm going to change my life.
Yeah, I completely recognise that from all the behaviour I've observed, and behaviour in myself in the past as well. So I suppose,
me too. Yeah, completely.
Yeah. It was perfect, right? So I think the thing that's probably most useful for people at this point in the conversation is, how can we start to get clear about what we actually want? What do they need to do? Because if you ask most people, you know, there are some rare individuals who are very clear. They've always wanted to be a racing driver, for example. They're very clear about it. They've always wanted to be a world champion. And maybe they've got a shot at it as a result, you know, and maybe they don't. But for most of us, ordinary mortals, actually, that's quite a difficult question. So, what thoughts do you have around, what kinds of things would you encourage people to do to start to get clearer?
Getting clearer on what you want. There's a large element of that awareness factor again, knowing what's rewarding to me. When I'm working with business people, you get a lot of these nominalizations. I want to perform at a higher level. Well, that doesn't mean anything.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Yes.
Specifically how? And what does that do for you?
So being very specific is important by the sound of it.
Yeah, because if you're vague, you have too many choices, there's too many possibilities, there's too many options, there's not enough clarity. So to get specific,
that's the problem in a sense, isn't it? There's a world of opportunity. Everything is possible potentially.
Yeah.
So there's too much to choose from.
And so what ends up happening is people don't take any action because they don't even know where to start.
Yes. Yes.
So a lot of the time, again, coming back to sort of outcome setting and goal setting and stuff, is the easiest thing is to work backwards. So if I did do that, whatever it was, maybe I thought, well, maybe I want to become such and such a thing. How would I do that? You work backwards from a place of having achieved it, because it's a far narrower path, rather than starting at a place of, wow, how do I achieve that? Because I could do this, I could do that, but this might happen, I could do it. It's far narrower path to work back from a place of having achieved it than it is to be standing there with all roads and all possibilities open to you, which is slightly overwhelming for people.
Yes. Yes, and absolutely where the limiting and empowering beliefs come in as well, I think, Greg, because people will allow themselves or not to believe they can go after something.
Yeah.
And I think it's reasonable to start from a position of not everything in the world is possible for me. I'm probably not going to be an Olympic 100-meter sprinter with the best will in the world, particularly at my age. But, assuming it's something that's physically possible, I think still those beliefs come in and say, yeah, but you don't deserve it, or you're not capable, or you could never get that fit, or, I've always thought we have a tendency towards the negative belief rather than the positive. Do you think that's a fair statement? That we're predisposed to?
There's a thing I use in my sessions when we look at people's negative beliefs and how people frame things in their own minds. We are a slave to our older brain. If I'm sitting in my cave in Neanderthal times, and I hear a rustling in the bush outside, my initial instinct is to go, that's the wind in the bushes. But then that part of me goes, yeah, but that could be a tiger.
Yeah.
But my rational brain goes, yeah, but it's windy, it's probably the wind. And then that other part of me goes, yeah, but it could be a tiger.
Yeah.
And then my conscious brain goes, yeah, but it's probably the wind. And that negative part of me goes, yeah, but it could be a tiger. And all of a sudden I've got my spirit going, well, it could be a tiger, but it might be the wind. Because that's what keeps us safe.
Yes.
And safety, certainty, and control are all tied together. When we feel like we're in control, we have a degree of certainty, and certainty makes us feel safe.
Yes.
So, if we don't know what we want, we don't have that certainty. So we don't feel that in control.
Yeah.
It's difficult to know what we want.
That's really interesting, because the picture in my mind is a world of opportunity and a world of risk. If I go towards any opportunity and take risk, it's not
which
safe.
removes the certainty, which means I'm not in control, which puts me into a flight or fight response, and I'm frozen and I take no action.
So this is really central to the Thrive Tribe idea again, because it's about becoming what we can be. Right? I'm not being put off by the fear and the uncertainty. And so, it's quite circular, I think, and spotting the opportunities that we want to pursue. I mean, one of the things I would suggest to people, for example, is just try. We do create all these barriers where we never begin. And there is a quote about that I can't quite recite perfectly, along the lines of, just try, it's magical. You take a step and other things fall into place. So people have to start, I think, is one tip,
The one thing I always get with my clients is, it's not a one-time deal. you know? If you
Yeah.
choose to do something, the amazing thing is you get to choose again.
Yes.
It's not a one-time deal. If you decide to do one thing and it's either not right for you or it's not what you thought, that's fine. You get to choose again.
Yes, it's an iterative process, isn't it? We try something.
Yeah.
I've done this myself, and we think, yeah, that's not quite what I wanted. It's more like this. But it comes out of me having tried something and feeling it and deciding whether or not that was right.
It's that evolving process of goals and outcomes as well, because the whole goal setting thing people find very hard and people don't review them, and I think one of the secrets with goals and knowing where you're going and the direction you're going is it's going to change.
Yes.
You'll set out with a goal, but two steps down the line that will have completely changed. I was working with a guy last year, and initially in their business they were focused in an away from motivation. They were trying to get out of poverty.
Yes.
And then they started to change it as they started to make money, and they changed more towards motivation and what they did want. Yeah. And when they did that, they realized that actually what they wanted wasn't originally what they thought they wanted, because they thought it was the money and the success but it's actually not that. Yes. It was the contentment that came from doing other things not related to their business. And okay, the money helped them to do that. Yes. But it was what was ultimately the thing that gave them that fulfillment.
Yes. And that's lovely, Greg, because it's kind of coming full circle to when we were talking about peace of mind, which, as I said, is the number one thing people seem to be seeking in life, and I get that. There is an article on the Thrive Tribe website about this, and it's coming full circle back to that. And actually, what is it that will make me as an individual fulfilled, happy, peaceful? And that's going to be a slightly different answer for each person, right?
Oh, for everybody, and I'm quite a practical person, but this is where my edges soften and I become a little bit more altruistic and a little bit more woo-woo. And if we could all help other people have their unmet needs met, the world would be a much better place, because I'd have 6.99 billion people all trying to make me happy and look after me. In the same way that everybody that I meet and interact with, if I can help them feel better about themselves, help them be successful, help them get what they want,
yes,
they're going to be happier, and that makes my world happier, you know. And we can apply that to those around us, you know, our significant others, our partners. If we recognize from their behavior what unmet need isn't being met. Is it security? Is it a sense of certainty? Is it a sense of joy, a sense of fun? If we can help them meet that unmet need within themselves, they will be happier, our world will be happier, and so by doing things for other people, it's better for ourselves as well.
Now what you've been describing there, which very much resonates with me, that sounds very altruistic. But actually, when you come to material rewards, because there'll be people listening to this saying, yeah, but I just want to be rich, basically, presumably. When it comes to material rewards, my experience, again, you know, through trial and error, is actually when you're doing what you said, the material reward follows. Because if you're meeting people's unmet needs, absolutely, they're going to come and seek you out. Absolutely. And they're going to be very happy to share the rewards with you.
You could call it manipulation if you wanted. But by helping other people, you're influencing their behavior, and you can help influence it for a positive way, and it benefits you. So, yeah, it's not manipulation. It's everybody wins. Everybody wins.
Exactly. And as consumers, we experience great service or something like that where we're delighted. We think, I'm very happy to pay. I'm going to tip. I'm so happy I'm going to tip extra, right? Yeah. Because we're having a great experience. So that is the way it works, I think. And the problem with chasing the material reward, I think, is you lose contact with the service you're providing and how you're helping people, and it becomes a very hard slog, potentially, going after the money. You know, having spent some years in sales myself, that can become really hard, really hard.
There's also a chance for... Sorry, on you go.
Yeah.
What I have noticed in we all have our thing that we do, that thing that gives us that feeling inside. Whether it's spending time with family, whether it's that hobby that we do, whether it's writing, creative writing, music, a sport that we take part in, the thing that makes us feel happy, fulfilled, and gives us that lovely feeling. We all have that. And when we do start to pursue that dollar value, that pound value, whatever it is that we're after, a lot of the time, the things that gives the fulfillment get put on the back burner.
Yep.
Because I don't have time for that, because I'm too busy trying to make money. Because that's the thing that will give me freedom. That's the thing that will make me happy. That will be. And the thing that makes us fulfilled, we put to the side and we don't give it enough attention. But the problem is, the more we ignore it, the louder it shouts.
Yes.
And then we start to resent that we're spending all this time trying to make this business thing work, or all the time at work, and I'm spending 20, and we develop other.
Until later, aren't we? We're saying I'll be happy when.
Yeah, absolutely. So pay attention to the thing. Yeah, absolutely. Pay attention to the thing that does make you fulfilled, because it will actually bring a better version to you, a better version of you to what you're doing in business as well. If you're happy that you've spent an afternoon playing five-a-side football, or you've been writing poetry, or you've been playing a guitar and singing a song, or learning to do something new, when you then take yourself back into your business environment or whatever environment it is, you're now a better version of yourself approaching that, because you've been fulfilled inside, rather than always constantly looking over your shoulder at the thing that you kind of want to be doing at the moment. You've done it, so you're feeling good about it, so you bring your best self to what it is you're trying to achieve.
Absolutely, yeah, spot on. I couldn't agree more, Greg. So let's round up. Maybe we should just try to, for the Thrive Tribe members listening to this, maybe we should just try to summarize a few of the things that they can do to it's all about thriving. It's all about being more of yourself. So let's just see if we can summarize some of the points we've been through. So I think we've touched on being clear about what you want is really important. Difficult, but important.
Absolutely.
I loved your idea about when you get into a deep emotional state, try stepping out of it physically and taking another perspective. Yep. That was fantastic. What other ones occur to you from our conversation?
I think one of the biggest things is being aware of how we think affects us physically, and how we move and act physically affects how we think. So coming back to that mind-body thing. And when you start to talk about mind-body connections, you can see some people rolling their eyes and stuff, but it's so important how we hold ourselves, the state that we are in, our whole combined mental and physical state. So something as simple, when you don't feel as resourceful as you could be, or you don't think, you wake up that morning and simple things, the old have a shower and a shave and put on some smart clothes. It changes you physiologically, and it will have a knock-on effect mentally.
Yes.
There's a little thing I use, when I'm talking to my clients. When I'm working, I wear a watch. When I'm not working, I don't wear my watch because I've got my Fitbit on. But it's a thing that lets me know that I'm in a certain place. I'm in a certain mindset. It's a cue for me. It's classical conditioning, if you like. If I have my watch on, I'm thinking in a certain way. I move in a certain way. I behave in a certain way.
Okay.
And we can use that just daily. Just be mindful of our posture. Notice if you're sitting like this all the time, because that's telling you a certain story. Relax, take a deep breath, open up your chest, open up your diaphragm, because your physiology will change your mind.
Right. And can I add to that language as well, the use of language?
Huge.
Because you hear people, I catch myself doing it as well, using quite extreme language to express something. Oliver will know this from IT problems, from listening to me, that I can express things in a very dramatic way, which actually aren't really all that dramatic. But so the language we use, it's worth watching our language, isn't it? And asking how extreme.
Language is, it's funny, I've got two people that I'm seeing at the moment, and whenever you're talking to them about things, they'll usually start a sentence with, yeah, you see, the problem is,
Yeah.
bang. Okay, so we need to move you from a problem frame to a solution frame. So it's like, okay, so take what you've just said, and how can you express that as a solution? So rather than telling me what the problem is, start it with, okay, so what I could do is.
Yeah.
So language is such a huge part of, you know, our inner dialogue as well as when we're talking to other people.
Fantastic. I love that. What could I do? Yes, using those positive expressions. We talked about beliefs as well. That's maybe another area that Thrive Tribe members can think about, examining their limiting beliefs. What would be more empowering beliefs? We could do a whole, you know, conversation, I'm sure, just on the question of beliefs. But suffice to say, you know, those things are changeable. Those are the stories we made up. So make up a better story.
Yeah, you know, asking that whole question: is this actually true?
Yes.
You know, and again, using that positions exercise, if you were to do that with a belief, you could have a positive belief, a negative belief, and an objective view. So you start off with, I believe this is my belief. Okay, so what would an objective person say?
Yes.
Looking at it, and okay, what's that? So if it was a negative belief, what's that negative belief's positive intent for you?
Yes.
Because if you've got somebody who's convinced that they can't do such and such a thing, well, maybe the positive intent of that negative belief is to keep you from feeling disappointed.
Yes.
Is to keep you safe. It doesn't want you to experience anything negative. So it's far better for it to generate a negative belief that stops you from taking action.
Yes.
Because it's keeping you safe.
Yes.
And it's a mistaken belief, but it's got a positive intent behind it.
Yes, absolutely. Fantastic. So,
that round.
Looking at beliefs, looking at language. Yeah, I mean, that's all great stuff. So we probably should wind it up, Greg. I think I hope that's been really useful for Thrive Tribe members. I found it fascinating, as I always do talking to you, Greg. So thank you so much for joining us. But maybe we can persuade you to come back sometime and talk a bit more.
Always happy to. Always happy to. It's such a big subject, and it's so exciting to talk about because change is possible and change happens all the time. You know, if change happened in a negative way for somebody, it can happen equally as quick in the opposite way.
Fantastic.
And there's always ways and means of getting to where you want to go or need to go. So.
Great. Greg, thank you so much, and we'll speak to you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye for now.